Welcome to the Friday Fitcast Season 3. We are kicking off with the celebrity alert of Talla Amini. And I'm just so happy to have you and have this conversation because many people have been looking forward to it. So first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having
Welcome.
me.
You're welcome, and glad that we were finally able to do this. So I know we had a couple of weeks of build up to where, it's great that our schedules finally aligned. We have a nice audience of being able to have a lot of athletes, professionals and amateurs, coaches, different federations watch us. And it's great because I know you are a 6-time bikini champion. You are the owner of Fuellicious, and you get the chance to be privy to a lot of the celebrities and stars that our sport has kind of brought us all together with. So I've kind of seen, the pictures, you and John Romano and Kai Green and a lot of the famous IFBB pros. And I'm just kind of curious, and the audience is we did our lead up today. We had a lot of questions come in. So I'm going to try and get to some of those if that's okay with you. But
Oh,
the
yeah.
audience really wanted to know, how did you get your start in the industry?
I got my start actually when I was still in Seattle, Washington, and I was working at a Gold's Gym in Kirkland. And I wanted to, like everybody starts with fitness, had fitness goals, but I just started expanding. And then I went to my first show was Ironman Championships, the NPC through Brad and Elaine Craig. And once I experienced that, it was something that, a lot of people have. It was a great experience, but it really, I took it not just for competing, but I observed. So sometimes when an athlete goes into show, they're thinking the diet and so forth, but I'm like, okay, what makes the show a show? Who are the people running? Who are the people in the crowd? Because everything together is as a whole, right? So when I walked in, I'm like, okay, I want to learn. I want to be a competitor. I want to grow, but what can I take away from this? So as I kind of grew into that mindset, I went to the next show, and sometimes I didn't go to shows just to compete. I just went to learn about companies, to learn about booths, to learn about products. So that's how I kind of opened the door for kind of new pathways, just by doing, but also by learning and observing. Sometimes being the person in the back is the best person you could be because you just observe and you just gather more knowledge and you build your knowledge through that.
And what year did you do the Ironman?
2015, I believe. Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great to see your pictures. I know you have a Facebook account too. And, for those of you who are following on Instagram, some of you already got the chance to see it's muscles underscore and underscore curves. That's how you can follow Talla on just her fitness journey. And what's great about what we got to talk about, we always have calls to where we say, okay, when we have guests, we want to know not only background, but really what do you specialize in? What are some of the things you're passionate about? And I know that Talla, you've been someone who's very passionate about working with kids. Whether it be impairments, whether it be kids who don't have the same ability as someone who is extremely talented, gifted, and you've gotten the chance to give back to your community. What got you so interested in that, and how do you use fitness to incorporate those two?
What definitely got me interested was working when I was going to college. I wanted to find different jobs that I could kind of learn what I wanted to major in. And luckily, I found jobs in kind of that helped children that were diagnosed with autism that needed skills such as speech skills, fine motor skills. And through working there, I learned how not just amazing children are at all levels and of all different backgrounds, but just how much help you could give them. And that was the thing. It was so humbling because we have, children that maybe aren't diagnosed that could do more physically. But sometimes the children who have impairments, whether it's physical or any kind of mental impairments, their skills can even exceed ours. I mean, they may lack in one area, but in another area they're so developed. So when I saw that, I'm like, you know what? what can I do to kind of highlight them at this point while teaching them what they needed to teach. And through that, I was like, okay, I want to pursue education because I wanted not to just teach children, but I'm like, those early years are so fundamental to the cognitive, physical, emotional. And when you, as a teacher, obviously when you get into that field, you're not thinking, okay, money is the number one priority. There has to be a balance, but you're thinking like it has to be something that's in your heart, because children, they're loving, but they could be a handful, right? And then especially if children that need special attention, you really have to have that like underlining soft factor to really be patient, not just to be patient because it's your job, but to be patient to really understand the core of how they're feeling. And they can receive that too. So that was kind of like the underlining motivating factor.
That's great. And you've earned your undergraduate from the University of Washington, and I have a picture that I want to share. How do you use something like this to connect with kids? Because I have a feeling I might know the answer, but I'd like for you to explain that.
With kids, so for example, when I first started the business, I with working with children that had been diagnosed with autism. They had special diets, sensitivity to sugar, sensitivity to gluten, and as being somebody who's into fitness, I'm like, what if I could make healthy treats and stuff, but stuff that are appealing to kids, right? No kid wants to eat like something that looks like a Quest bar, or they want to have, you want to get those nutrients and dietary recommendations for them, but you also want it to look exciting. You want it to look like the real thing. When you see it, you want to be like, oh, that looks good, and I want to indulge in that. And you want to feel good, right? So you don't want to give them the sugar rush, which is in every kid's diet. Even working in schools, it's like, oh, what do you want for snack? Peaches? Peaches dripped in sugar? Apples, that it keeps going, right? So to offer something that, was fun for them and uplifting. So that's how it kind of got inspired.
And I think that, I have 3 kids, and for
Oh
those of
yeah.
us who really care about what we put into our own bodies, we care even more about what we put into children's bodies and what they really kind of have in consistent diet. And I use diet very loosely. Can you talk about, because I know that you're moving up in divisions. You have competed bikini. I don't know if it's the Emerald Cup that I saw as we talked, but I know that you've done a lot in the Pacific Northwest. You're a very well-known fitness model. You're in demand for shoots. People know you. You get the chance to go to many different shows and represent something that I believe is really the epitome of health. And, physical health is one part of that. Emotional health is another, mental, spiritual, those types of things. And obviously, from your disposition, you're someone who is very caring about balance. And, I would like to know, just from your perspective, how has faith and how has fitness kind of intertwined in there? And how have you kind of looked at balancing all of those different ideas or compartments of fitness to help live a better life?
Um, Simply stated, I always tell myself faith is not being able to see what you want. It's all believing. So you don't see it. It's not promise. It's not something that says, okay, you do A and B and C. It equals whatever you want it to be. It's something that you are blind to, and it's just in the core of your heart. So it's just having faith. And faith is a very big word because it means so much unique things to everybody. It could mean so many different ways of meaning it. But the thing is, it's just having faith in yourself and what you want to do and how that impacts the people who are around you. Because you could have beliefs and things, but in a normal day situation, there's going to be things that will bring you down. It's just involuntarily, no matter what. It could be whether it's work, whether it's economic hardship, family, deaths in family. But it's something that you have to have inside you that says, okay, what is so strong about my faith that is going to make me endure this? And just knowing that one thing is that you're not alone, right? Whether you have something more that you believe in, or your family or the people that are around you, you're always your purpose serves more. And I don't believe that one person is better than the other or anything like that. But I do believe that faith, the more someone has in it, the more they can impact and help others. Because when people are down, it's the person that can not see it, but that could help others see it or receive it. Because faith is like an energy, right? When somebody has it in them, sometimes, like, for example, when you're in a room, there may be somebody that um, doesn't have anything, or what you would think may not be the best, or doesn't have much, but there's something about their energy that comes from within. And that could be confidence, but it's also that the faith that they believe in themselves. So I think that's a huge component, is believing in yourself.
This ties in. This is the challenging question. That was a layup, right? Now we'll get into the nitty
Yeah.
gritty. The longer we're in this industry and in this sport, the more we see. Some of it amazing things, some of it not so much, right? There's definitely challenge, especially when you're on prep. You've done more than one prep at this point. And I kind of alluded to you moving up to wellness, because wellness is harder because your body is forcing kind of more food down. You're having to train differently because you're putting on more muscle in certain areas of your body. And for those of you who know bikini, it's more of a slim, slender, toned, not as conditioned, but still shapely. You're moving into the category where, clearly you have to work your lower body so much differently. There's a lot of challenge in that, because not only are you going past exhaustion, you're having to constantly build muscle, and it takes a long time to build muscle. It's not like you just do a couple of years and it just shows up. You have to game
Exactly.
plan this. You have to be precise. And this year you're going to make your wellness debut. What were some of the challenges that you faced between moving to division from bikini to wellness? What has that been like, and how did you get through those sticking points? Because I'm sure you might have had some, and I'm kind of curious what those were.
Oh, and to be completely open, I'm actually just still in the middle of going through all those points, because it's still such a process. So right now it's everything. It goes from the training, from the rigorous training, to the diet, to the consistency, to the posing, right? Because if you're in such a category for so long, your body will naturally be fluent in those poses. So you kind of have to break that those poses to kind of learn this whole rhythm over again. Even though the poses are similar, it's kind of getting in that mindset, because you perform different. Because I see competing not just as I'm on stage, look at my physique. The way that I see it, I'm like, in a sense, you're performing, because there is an audience. So it's not just about, okay, I'm here on stage, I hit the poses. You want to interact with the audience. That's why sometimes when you watch a show, you could tell you could just see differences of people, right? And there's a certain way, because they're in the mindset. Like, for example, if you want to win wellness, you're doing the poses, but you have the mindset of a wellness champion, because at that point you have to know, okay, I did the exercises, I did the diet, and my body changed, right? And the way you do the poses is showcasing that. So I think, for example, I'm still trying to learn the poses, right? And my body will naturally just want to transition into bikini, and I still have to grow. And that kind of ties into faith, because um, the people that I work with now, I'm thankful for, and they're so honest. They're like, hey, you need more development. And a majority, 90%, will be like, if you want to be successful, stay in bikini. And I understand them, because they're just looking at the anatomy of the body. They're like, your body matches with this. But again, I'm like, well, this is what I want. This is what I'm willing to work towards. And they said, well, exactly what you said. They're like, well, it will take a few years. Are you willing to do that? And I said, yes, because it's a process. It's a learning journey, and you watch your body grow through it, just like anything.
And Nick said, get it, Talla. I mean, we have a lot of great folks. I've seen a lot of pro athletes actually joining in. We have some IFBB pros watching as well. And normally this wasn't even a live taping. We were going to pre-record and do the edit and then release this. But we said, what the heck?
Oh,
We'll go raw and unfiltered and unedited. There's a third
yeah.
component to this that I want to bring in and blend in, because faith is important. Obviously, having the support that you talked about, the relationships that you have with your coach, with your family, with your loved ones, some of those you have to keep close. Some of them you have to cut ties and let go. We've seen that through a lot of different journeys, and now we have a business component. Obviously, you have to make a living, and as we know, as amateur athletes, we don't make money doing this. It actually costs us a lot of money with food, supplements, prep, coaches, posing, suits, entries, memberships. You can go down the list, right? And it seems to be never ending too, if you ever notice that.
It never ends. Yeah.
Yes. How has maybe sponsorships or ambassadorships, or how has business become a forefront for you to be able to not only fund what you love to do, but also be able to be viable to where it does make enough plus to where you're not just making ends meet? I'm just kind of curious how you see the business component of this, especially in the bodybuilding industry.
The first component I'd like to start with that you mentioned is sponsorships. I think with that, that's something that seems small, right? So when people want to get sponsored, their first thing is, okay, I want photos, I want to be out there, but the one thing that they're missing is what value can I bring to them, right? So if some people, they're like, oh, I want this, I want that, but the key factor is saying, what can I offer you? What can I bring to the table to help your company? What can I be of value to you? And once you start talking to companies like that, they're like, well, this is what we have to offer. And you're like, okay, for example, and that's how you tie into business. I'm like, okay, I make these products. If your product is egg whites, I would love to do a recipe where I include your egg white brand and I will give you credit for that. And they're like, that sounds awesome. So it's like you're benefiting them. But the most important thing is that you came to them and you offered them first versus take. Because that's what they're looking for. Because people that want to sponsor people, they're looking not just for an athlete, because everybody will look great with their physique, some, at any point. Obviously, there's the ones that are um, at the top of the game in the Olympia and the Arnold. But either way, they want value, right? So even at whatever stage you are, as long as you're willing to expand and also communicate is really important. And when I say that, I mean by asking them questions like, "Oh, I noticed that you will have a booth at the show. Can I come work the booth?" And sometimes it's not about like, can I get paid? You just say, can I be there? And they'll be like, wow, they just want to be there to be there. They just want to help. So that in itself, you're building trust. And they're like, these are the people we want on our team. So the more that you're willing to go for them and build with them, they'll go for you. And even if they don't, sometimes it doesn't work the first time, the second time, the third time, but steadily through the years. That's why it takes time. You build relationships with them. And once you build that trust, they're like, okay, you know what? We would love to, for example, fly you out to the Arnold. We would love to help you out. And then when you go to the Arnold, you're not like, oh, thanks, I got my ticket here. You're just like, you go to the expo and you're like, what can I do? And then again, and then you keep building. And through that, you build friendships. And when you go to the expos, then you meet people and they're like, oh, can we have your business card? What do you make? Oh, this is what I make. Let's network. And that's how you build customers. And not only just customers, but you get the name of the business going around.
You hit one thing that I think is key that some people even might have missed. The trust factor is huge, especially in our industry where a lot of people talk, but very few deliver. And, I've
Yes.
noticed the way that you've done shoots with Species Gym, Toxic Angels, bikinis. You were on stage at the Arnold. Here is one of your shots. And this is when you're not even really doing the show to do the show. It's more of a fitness modeling or a branding. And I'm just kind of curious, how were you able to get involved being on stage at the Arnold? Because that's something that, some people go and they have fun doing it or watching, but you got on stage. How did that happen?
Again, it was through just building with this company. It was angelcompetitionsbikinis.com. And we went back since 2014. 2004. So it took time, it took trust. And then they came up with the concept of a fashion show, right? So I have the knowledge of fashion and then doing the cookies and so forth. So it's taking all these elements and again, just providing that to that company. So it's just, you could make anything as possible, but sometimes you kind of have to go under your belt and be like, what can I work with? I don't have this, but again, what can I offer? And then one thing I offered them, I said, these are all women at the fashion show. What do women love? They love treats, right? So they're like, okay, we would love treats for the athletes. And I'm like, no problem. So then that's when I became their official cookie sponsor person, because not every person has a competitive side, right? And when I went to the Olympia, I noticed even backstage there was this company, and I only will mention their name to say positive things. My cookie dealer, right, which is like my how do you say it? It's like my rival. So they're
Your
just this
competition.
big, yes, yeah, competition, big time. But they make like these huge 2,000 plus calorie cookies, right? But they're amazing. But I'm like, I looked at them and I'm like, what can I mimic from that? So I'm like, okay, I see that they're doing this. So it wasn't taking from them. If anything, I acknowledged how successful they were. And I was like, okay, I think I could use this and bring it to this company. And then that's kind of when the relations with the Arnold built, with the company built, and it kind of just grew from there.
That's
And being
great.
on stage, like I'm not show ready. So that's another hard thing, is that they're like, well, do the fashion show in Baltimore, do this. I'm like, that's really hard to kind of not know, kind of being in this position of trying to grow your body and then come out on that stage with all these people walking. That's kind of, it's hard. And you're not going to hit those poses. You literally have to like stretch your stuff, and the whole thing is about woman with confidence, right? So you can't be cautious of hiding. You have to embrace your body, right? So that in itself was a journey.
That's something I want to touch on in a second too, because a lot of times post show, they're called post show blues, and even promoters get it, directors get it. And, it's like, well, what now? We did an event, right? You either participated in the event, which by the way, not everybody gets to participate, let alone go to an Arnold Classic in Columbus,
Right?
Ohio.
Yeah.
So you had this picture. What does Arnold Schwarzenegger mean to you, and what did the Arnold Classic mean to you being there and actually being a participant instead of a consumer?
It meant, to be, it just meant the world to me. I mean, there's lots of things that mean a lot to me, but I remember when I first started, and I would see on Facebook like clips of the Arnold. I'm like, I wish I could be there. I'm like, technically, if you really want to, you could save the money, you could get the flight, but I'm like, no, next year. Or maybe one day I'll get there, or one day. But it meant everything. And then to be a part of it was something else. So that's why when I went there, I said, enjoy every moment, because sometimes what is given is very taken for granted. It's just what may seem small to someone is huge to another person. So when I was there, I wish I would have embraced it more, but the way that I saw, especially business perspective, I'm like, okay, I have this, like, for somebody who wants to expand their business, I'm like, here's this huge expo, it's go time. Like, I'm going to go talk to this company. I'm going to talk to that company. So I really use that time to really take in the experience, but to really maximize the people I met, the contacts. And then again, everybody enjoys seeing Arnold on stage, right? So just being able to see him, and to see that, and to see the whole choreography and everything, how they do the show was phenomenal, because it's one thing to see clips of it online, but it's another to see the whole production. It's extremely motivating, extremely motivating.
I don't want to say this. Well, I'm going to say it the way we're going to say it. I think about the way that certain people are able to cut the line in life, and it's not just that, like the Arnold, like I would have to go pay a ticket. I'm not a known guy there. I'd go pay my ticket. I'd go through the door, and I'd just watch and participate as much as I could as a consumer. You get to see the other side of it. So what's great about it is you have made yourself valuable enough to them, whether it be a booth, a vendor, a networker, someone who can participate in the fashion show with fitness. It's fitness angel suits. Angel competition
Angel
suits?
competition bikinis, yes.
Very good. Angel competition. There's so many out there. I probably ended up
There's
saying
so many.
toxic angels instead of angel competition
Yeah,
bikinis.
they're a big one too.
Yes. And so, we have suit makers that, obviously are featured at these. And so a lot of athletes get intimidated and don't realize the importance of being able not to be forward because you're someone who is easy to communicate with. And I think that a lot of times that if people, or especially athletes, if they put themselves out more and say, how can I bring something to you? They get something in return eventually. Might not be the first, second, or third time, like you mentioned, but you know what? That's what promoters look for. Hey, go help out at a show. You get free access to a show. If they ask you to do something, do it to the best of your ability. And you know what? A lot of those times when you get involved with those folks, they're going to introduce you and indirectly you get business from it. And so, how long has Fuelicious been going now? Because I know that when you created that company, you probably had no idea it would be this wildly successful. Tell us as far as kind of how you've grown that, and then also what your future plans are.
I started it in late 2018, and I've just been growing it through um, being doing booths, doing samples, always improving the website, and just going out there and putting the business card out there. And also, what I recently did, because I love bodybuilding, but I'm like, what about, I kind of think outside the box. I'm like, okay, there's this field, but why not beauty pageants, right? Because people want to eat things that they enjoy, but they want to look good, feel good. So kind of expanding. And then once you meet those people, they're like, oh, I would love to learn more about fitness. I would love, maybe I'm looking for a coach to work this part of my body. So you kind of make these cross connections and everybody benefits. So with my business, I want to keep supporting the bodybuilding community, but I'm also looking to expand to kind of reach kind of other areas as well.
Okay, we're going to have a hot seat question. I like that you started in 2018. You made it through where, that time in Washington probably wasn't the easiest step there, being cooped up for a few years. And I would be willing to bet that maybe your business jumped a little bit because sweets are always, I guess, directly to the soul. As soon as it hits that stomach, and like you're like, oh man, that touched my soul. I'm drooling over this Reese's that's sitting on my computer right now that you took the picture of and sent to me. Okay, I'm not going to look at that. So here's the big question. What's your favorite cheat or treat meal after a show?
um, Cheesecake with like fresh strawberries, like strawberries cheesecake, which is like really common, but that simplicity, surprisingly, because my website, I love making like these BCA gummy bears and these hot pink things, but with myself, I'm like very simple. That's my favorite.
That's cool. Now we're going to
Yeah.
get a little tougher with this question. Your favorite moment so far to date could have been on stage, off stage, or where you had a big breakthrough and you felt like you belonged in this sport.
My just right at the top of my mind was this past fall in San Antonio, Texas, when I got sponsored under the Angel Competitions bikinis, and they gave me this crown, and they made this announcement, and it wasn't just like a sponsorship. They were talking about that um, trust, because that was like what 10 plus years ago, or building that. And that really meant a lot to me, because I remember years ago, like wanting to be able to afford a suit like that. I'm like, one day, I want to get a suit like that, because usually I would ask other competitors and be like, oh, can I borrow your suit? And I was mad at first. I don't blame them now, but they'd be like, no, that's mine. Go get your own. I was like, fine, but I get it now, it's a suit. But I was like, one day I'll be able to do that. And just to like have the suits now and like be able to work with the people and things like that is like a big breakthrough for me, because I remember so bad how much I wanted one, so that even though it's just a suit, it has that significance of being able to do something that you always wanted to do, or have something that you always wanted to have.
It means something to you.
Yeah.
Now, this is going to be a tougher question. And when I ask this, it might take a second. What was your most challenging moment or your most difficult to get through in this industry? Anything come to mind there?
The most challenging was when I went to a national show. It was in Charleston, South Carolina. It was USA's, and I decided to compete during COVID, and that they surprisingly they were open and they had it going. But I was so determined at that point because I'm like, you know what? There's no gyms open. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna like really focus at it because I had like the home gym, right? But I was like, I'm gonna if I could produce a good physique doing this, it'll build my confidence. I could do this, right? So I went there and and I did last. But the good thing that I learned though through it is that I don't know. I'm sure you know her, Sandy Williamson. She's like the head judge for all the shows, and through other people like Nick that have taught me a lot. They're like, sometimes it's like comparing, and this really helped me get through it. They're like, it's like comparing apples to oranges. Sometimes the whole show, is just oranges and you're the apple. It just depends. And they were saying like you were too conditioned. All these girls look full, so kind of this has nothing to do with physique wasn't good enough. But again, they're going to look at all the oranges and pick the best orange. I mean, that sounds like kind of cliche, but in a sense, it was really simple but helpful advice. Um, and it made me feel better. But getting that low, I'm like, that's like dead last. It's not even like one before. It's like, and even when I was on stage, I'm like, are they looking at me? Because you want them to look at you. I'm like, I'll just smile. They wouldn't look at me. And in my head, I'm like, over here, and they didn't. And they kept me in the back the whole time. So after a while holding that pose, I'm like, oh my gosh. Because at that point, I knew it's like game over. But having to still stay on the stage, and these are big shows, right? So it goes forever and ever, not just backstage, but on the stage. And yeah, and then I remember it was so hot, and like I tripped over my shoe, and I fell face down on the carpet. So it was like a whirlwind of emotions. But now it's like I laugh about it now. But it was an experience. So that was like my worst.
We need those though. My very first show I did, I got dead last, and that just put the fire, or like fueled the fire tremendously to say, well, I'll never have that happen again because I know that feeling and I don't like it. So let's go ahead and put that over there and let's train differently and get the right people on board. And here's going to be a fun question. What is your biggest goal, or what would be like your ultimate dream that you said, I've hit Mount Everest, the top of the mountain. What would be your ultimate like crazy goal? If it came true, it would make everything great.
And for fitness, I always have it written in my journal. It's I want to be the number one, or the first, I should say, the first IFBB Pro Wellness American in the world. Because there's none. Persian women, it's so rare that they do bodybuilding. But I'm like, imagine if you're the first one to do that. Like that to me, I'm like, that would be so awesome to be. So that's my goal.
And so you have that in your journal. You've already thought about it. It seems pretty crystal clear the way that you explain that, because a lot of people don't know that. They just see IFBB wellness and they don't even know what wellness means, which means you have a larger, rounder glute, you have a larger quad sweep, a glute ham tie-in, simple striations, possible striations there, separation. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into the way that a wellness athlete trains, as opposed to even a bodybuilder or a figure athlete or even a bikini athlete. So not only have you like put more on your plate and made it 10 times more challenging, you want to be the first. And I didn't know there
First.
was not a Persian wellness pro.
Not that I have seen or found, and even in Iran right now, like even when Mr. Olympia, when Hadi won, that was a big deal in Iran, and just for him to even go through with his workouts, yet alone women that are Persian, to be able for them to even use a gym, so to represent that country and to be the first one to do that, that would be, I mean, to me, I'm like, that'd be so cool. Will it
Yeah,
happen? I have faith it can one day, and I'll keep working towards it. But yeah, it's just something that I always keep in my journal.
cool. Let's talk about the upcoming season. You're obviously working towards something. You've competed in many shows. How many shows have you competed in, or have you lost count at this point?
I think I've lost count. I mean, it's probably under, it's actually not too, it's like below 20.
Okay.
Some people say like that's a lot, but for me, I'm like, it's okay.
Gotcha.
But it's been a while since I competed, and I really want to get back to it. But again, my lower body, it's made progress, but it's really hard to grow. And I have learned to accept like my genetic strong points and my points that aren't as strong. Like I've learned through changing my training. I'm like I've noticed that I could get conditioned quick, and I noticed I could put a lot of muscle in my back or my upper body. So that's a positive, right? So I always look for the positive, but I'm like, I really need to grow my legs, because even I always want to be the best at what I do. So I look at the best, and they're just massive. These women, I'm like, they're, especially in person, like, picture is a picture, but when you see them, it's just like, it's even bigger in person. I'm like, wow, it's just, it's art. It is building. The legs are bigger, everything is bigger, but they've gotten that size and they've gotten that right amount of conditioning down, and then you just have these small waists and just these overdeveloped quads, and I'm like, that takes a certain structure of training, right? It takes a certain kind of training program. It's not just, okay, let's go into the gym. It's a very technical, very specific to get such a angled physique that way. And especially being a woman, I have so much respect for all that work that it takes, because even with me, I'm like, I try to keep increasing the weight. I'm like, okay, let's go 6 to 8. But then again, it takes time. So I'm like, just do quality versus quantity. Like, don't like rush ahead. If you really want to do this, keep going. You may not get there now. You may not get there in 3 months. Try 6 months. Try 9 months. Just be grateful that you're even doing it. Be grateful that you have what you have, and just keep going. And then if the cards are meant to fall that way, they'll fall. And I just have faith in it.
So, do you have a date this year? Because I think you've been off for what, 2 years, maybe three at this point. Do you have a show that you have your eye on this year, or are you looking to move into 2024 and kind of see and test the market after you've grown a little bit more?
I'm definitely looking for a spring show. So I was thinking to this year, but this year I swear is going by so fast. Like, we're already in spring. I'm like, it's insane, right? So I'm thinking, like, let's grow a little bit more. And even if I'm not the size that I want, I still want to get myself out there, because I said, as long as you get out there, you're getting used to being on stage again. You need to learn how your body, like, you could pose and practice, but you need to feel that confidence in front of the judges, because yes, a beautiful conditioned physique will win, but also it's the presentation, and you have to be confident with that posing. So I'm like, get comfortable doing more. Just get going, like, because of course it will take me time to develop, but I'm like, just keep, if you need to do a few shows before, just try it, because at least by the time when you're really to get all dialed in, you'll know, okay, this is what it feels like to go on stage again, yet alone wait and then go on stage all of a sudden. So that's kind of my game plan. That's kind of where I have my um, game plan set and structure.
And you're going to see on the ticker on the bottom that, I put your Instagram on there, because a lot of times, people are like, how do you follow Talla? And I'm seeing all these messages. So if you wonder what I'm doing in the background, I'm looking at like three
Oh,
different
it's
things.
okay.
And so, IG is muscles underscore and underscore curves to follow Talla on her journey
Thank
coming
you.
up in 2023. And, do you see this as kind of a long-term thing? Do you see this 5 years down the road where, because you're still young and, you've got obviously a lot in you to be able to move into a different category and then turn pro? What would you ultimately like to see? Would you like to see your journey another 5 years, 10 years, or just, hey, whenever you feel it's time to move on, it's time to move on?
Um, this is actually the first time I talked about this, but what I've been thinking of is, I like the feeling of, as I'm doing my training, I like the feeling of being training for myself, if that makes sense. Yes, there's a show in mind, but I have loved the feeling of just having these small goals set for myself and kind of seeing my body make small changes. And as I'm learning how this feels, because I've always done shows or been thinking about shows, I'm like, I do like kind of the modeling aspect of things. So I've been thinking about just kind of focusing on like fashion more and my company more, and kind of reaching out into still keeping fitness, but kind of um, reaching out into helping other women and helping build their confidence. Because as much as I love the sport, one thing that I think that even men, because sometimes I think, and sorry if I'm going off topic a
No, you're
bit,
good.
um, I think that men, because this is such a masculine sport, they don't really talk about their feelings or their insecurities, right? And they don't really talk about it. And I think just maybe even, one day kind of backing off it and just kind of being used as a tool to help others, kind of with the experience that I had, being like, hey, I built this experience. I got what I wanted from it, meaning like I took the best parts and I'll put it in my book and my life. What can I do now to help others? Because sometimes even with business or competing, I'm like, even if you get a certain number of placings or pro cards or you make money, what do you where is it going to go? Are you going to invest it in a family? Are you going to invest it in people? So I want to achieve that first Persian American wellness pro card. I want that, but I'm like, as I'm working through that, I'm like, I'm kind of building for what the future is after, because I'm like, at one point I know that I'm going to want to just um, maybe focus on a family and just focus on helping people, because it takes a lot of work, to continue competing, which I don't mind the work, but I just want to transition that investment of work into other people and other things.
Agreed 100%. And a lot of people use this as a vehicle. Some of it, they want to do it as a career. Sometimes it's a springboard into an auxiliary. Maybe they go into personal training, maybe they go into modeling, they go into promoting, they go into something. So I'm kind of curious, where do you see the sport going? A lot of times we're rewarding, and especially in the IFBB and the NPC, we're rewarding size and conditioning. Those seem to be the two. And are you seeing a difference now that Arnold has spoken up and said, "Hey, we don't want the big mass monsters. That's not what we got into the sport for, and it's forming that way." What would you like to see with some of the women's divisions? Do you see those going that same way, or do you really feel like they have a good direction moving forward in their criteria and you feeling comfortable in wellness?
I think
That's a
that the
loaded
way
question. I know. Wasn't easy.
it's okay. I think with the way that they've done women, it's actually really smart, because if you notice, wellness is that's the tough part. Wellness seems to be getting, in my opinion, everybody's opinion is different. It seems to be getting a little bit more bigger and more conditioned, and bikini is looking a little bit softer. But I think that's in a sense fair, because they're trying to show, because everybody wants to be what is, Miss Olympia bikini and so forth. They're looking for that as examples. So they're trying to say, okay, they want to make that differentiation between the two. They want that different structure. So I think that it's good that they're setting it apart and kind of showing the examples. But I think they're providing a lot of resources too. And the one thing, and this could be maybe not within the IFBB or the NPC, but one thing I would like to see in the future for women is workshops. We have workshops for posing, we have workshops for other things, but again, the workshops for confidence, for building confidence, and not just to perform on stage, but um, to learn self acceptance before a show, after a show. I know a lot of women, they struggle with, they want to keep that look. And naturally, after show, even if you have a plan to eat properly, things are going to change. And just learning self acceptance, and also the mind, right? Because also conditioning your mind. Because even when I go into the gym, I I have days, I'm not perfect at all. And I have days where I'll walk in the gym and I'm like, I don't feel mentally grounded. And that means dedicated. And so I always know I have to be in a happy place, and nothing's ever going to be perfect, but I need to know that I'm in a secure mind state or emotional state to go and do things. And I think a lot of women could benefit learning that other women have the same issues that they do, because a lot of times in prep, a lot of people seclude themselves because it becomes about them, about their diet, about the things that they go through, and sometimes they think that they're by themselves, or their insecurities are just them. But only if they knew that there's all these other people that feel exactly the way they do. Or even men, maybe be good for, like, for men to have, like, more teamwork, more workshops, just for them to talk about their issues, and not feel neglected in that area. So I think they're doing a great thing for women, but I think all around the NPC, because there's these new things coming out, I think that would be one great thing that everybody could benefit from.
Yeah. You hit this right on the head. Men do experience similarly, but not like women because they process it differently. And the bad word is, the two bad words put together are body dysmorphia, right? We're expected to hold that and look like that and feel like we can. And, being down at that low of a body percentage is not healthy for men or women. Being that dry, maybe a little dehydrated, and eating so strictly, and being able to do so much cardio. The human body is amazing at what it can do. But also, it's not meant to be living there. We can be there for a few days, maybe even a week or two, but the body is meant to survive and thrive, and that's in survival mode because you're forcing it to be leaner than it normally is used to. And as you go through each plan and cycle of a prep, you're going to naturally get better, and your body's going to recognize it a little bit more. Sometimes it's a little bit more stubborn when you're older. But you hit it right on the head with workshops. And are you seeing a lot of those workshops now, or is that becoming more aware? Because I'm noticing that a lot of people are reversing out. Their post is much healthier than just binging, because a lot of times we get into our feelings, men and women, right? We get into our
Yeah.
feelings and we're like, man, sugar sounds great because I've been deprived of it. So now let me go overboard. And it goes into an extreme, pendulum of going the opposite direction. And we feel like crud for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And then we have to somehow get out of that cycle. And some people struggle to get out of there. So where do you feel you've kind of recognized that in your career? Because I don't think very many athletes do. And you feel like, or I feel like you've gotten a very good handle on it.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to, like, learn from so many people. And one person I want to mention, they're from Team Elite. His name is Adam Vanelia. And I know with his clients, he always, sometimes coaches are like, okay, let's focus on that win. Let's focus on getting that placing, and let's just focus on that. But I think even a month before, 4 weeks before, there should always be a plan for the show after, as just as dedicated as you were before, because that physique of yours is an investment, right? It's like working on a car. Everything you do, it's an investment. It's a piece of art. But you mess with the wrong things, you're going to alter other problems with it. So you really have to learn how to fuel it well, because that is your transportation. That's what gets you going. That's what gets you moving. So I think just having knowledge of that. And kind of an example I could give is, like, when you have a show coming up, yeah, you might want to go out to dinner, but still in your home, like, keep healthy food, but keep treats that you enjoy. So be like, okay, this is what I would like to have, and find modifications for it. So, for example, if you want ice cream, like, there's still stuff that tastes great, like Halo Top is a good one, right? And these things, there's so many alternatives nowadays. I mean, I remember, like, 10 years ago, to find something that what didn't have dairy in it, that didn't, that now you could get ice cream with almond milk, with there's such an arrangement that um, I think those things are so underlooked that we have access to at the store. But just learning knowledge of that and having a plan, just treating it as you would a show, because you are your investment. The show is, as you know, shows go by so fast. Even as a show promoter, it's something that you're passionate, you're invested in. But that day, all that work of months, it goes by so fast because it's exciting. It's an adrenaline rush, right? And the first thing we want after adrenaline, even being an athlete on stage, is sugar, is naturally things like that. So kind of having that plan, and that's why I tie in business with that too. Is like I make all kinds of different desserts, but that was another motivating factor, is to have desserts that are low in sugar and high in protein to keep athletes like full and content, but to give them that fix, because it makes a big difference how they feel, right? Like the next day, how they look with photo shoots, and it keeps things on track.
Agreed. Now you got me thinking about pineapple. Like this is my go-to for sugar, pineapple and honey, because it just seemed
Oh
to
yeah,
take the edge off. Love two
yeah.
naturals. And then I don't know about you for salt, but I was a pickle person. Pickles just seem to
Oh
take the
yeah.
edge off and just get a little bit drier just because of that sodium. Are you pickle, honey, pineapple at all?
Um, I'm not so much as salt, but honey, yes.
Okay.
Honey for sure. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
not alone. Wow. I have to say this went by a whole lot quicker than I thought. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped a comment here. And oh, you know what? We have somebody tuning in from the Philippines. So
Oh,
we have a
awesome.
lot of questions, and that's really cool because a lot of times, when it's nighttime here, we're on a 2-hour time difference, you and myself,
Oh,
and then the
yeah.
Philippines is just waking up. And then, maybe Iran tunes in, and then maybe we've got, all of these different folks from around the world. So I want to first of all thank you for the time, and I want
Thank
for people
you.
to know your journey. And I think that you gave us a kind of a sneak peek in and pulled the curtain back a little bit and said, look, there's a lot of things to this. There's levels, there's layers. And I think we can have a part two of this if you're okay with that. And
Oh,
I'm
I
just
would love
curious.
it.
Cool. How can
Absolutely.
people follow you, and what's the best way to follow you in your journey in case they have a question?
Currently, the best social media platform is my main Instagram, is the Muscles and Curves, and the website that they could always email at is www.fueliciousbakery.com, and then also on the Instagram is my email contact, which is the iCloud, which is more personal, but then I could answer any questions there. So that those all those three work.
So Fuelicious Bakery, what we'll do is when we do go to edit, we'll have that streaming as well. So that way people can go and do you ship treats, or are they just local to the Pacific Northwest?
We ship everywhere. Yeah.
All right. Now everybody's got cooking. I see everything lighting up over here. You see these little heart emojis and the like
Oh,
emojis, and it's really cool. But no, Atala, thank you so much. I know you just got off of work. It's been a heck of a week for you. We enjoyed having you, following your journey. Can't wait to see what you're up to. And when you do get your IFBB Pro card, a huge celebration is in order. Is that a deal?
thank you. That's perfect.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. So, for all of you tuning in, please make sure follow Tala. And if you have questions, we can hopefully get you directed to any Fuelicious. And also, if you are interested and were inspired by her story and want to compete, whether it be transformation, whether it be bikini, and you want to do it, at not a novice level, but maybe look for a professional type platform to be able to do. It leads into modeling. It leads into different opportunities to volunteer at shows, possibly be staff. The reason why we like doing these is we like to connect people with things that work. And I think that with your sphere of influence and what we're doing, we want to be able to provide any platform for someone who's interested to see how we can get them involved to help them move them forward as well. So love what you do with children. Have a great weekend.
You
And we
too.
will see you guys for episode 2 next week. Special guest to be announced Monday. Enjoy the weekend.
Awesome. Thank you.